The Overlord, the Omega, and Garmadon. They all share one commonality. They are all beings of great power. They all hold the strength to reshape Ninjago as we know it into their own twisted image. And that is one of the reasons why Ninjago is fantastic. But you have something that is on the other hand. Villains who don't necessarily have that kind of power, but have still earned their own footnote when it does come to Ninjago. And that is because they've taken the fact that they don't inherently have those abilities and have worked with it regardless. They have taken their own stride to become something within Ninjago that is still at the likes of these other villains. And I think that makes them potentially more dangerous than the ones with power. So what I want to do today is actually go through these villains. Talk about 3 particular examples of a villain who isn't natively strong by any account. By all recognition, they're just a regular person, but through sheer will and determination, they made themselves at the level of the more stronger villains. So, we are going to take a look at how they do it and what makes them so dangerous. And I'll say, like always, I would love to know, what is your favourite powerless Ninjago villain? Because I do think they are some of the best entries we've had. So, let me show you 3 examples today, and we will see where we feel afterwards. So let me not waste any more of your time, and let's talk about how Ninjago's most dangerous villains have no power. Now, when I say powerless villains, I actually mean 3 different types of powerless villains, because we have 3 examples that do fit them all perfectly. Starting off with the first type of powerless villain, which falls perfectly into Blecht. He was one of the villains from Season 2, Part 2, from Dragon's Rising, and the way he actually was a powerless villain is actually fascinating, because he leveraged a different type of power that he had to gain power in a different sort of sense. His type of powerless nature was the power of influence. He didn't have a sword, he didn't have elemental power, he had a control over something that had an interest to someone else. He had the Tournament of Sources, and he was able to leverage the control he had as a means to acquire more power over Roby specifically. He made a deal with Raz and the Wolf Clan in exchange for the taking away of Roby so he could finally have the Tournament of Sources to himself. He wanted more power in the sense of the influence over the Tournament Temple City. It is not standard power by any means, and if any of the ninja faced up against him, he would immediately lose, of course. But that's the point. He wasn't a villain in the sense of at the forefront. He wasn't a villain that was meant to be in your face, meant to tell you exactly what's going to happen, rule Ninjago. He just simply had his own lane, and he took advantage of what he had, which I think is just genuinely fascinating. So by all accounts and by definition, he's powerless. He doesn't have anything, he's just an old man. But in the sense of influence, he had power, which makes him more just dangerous by proximity. The fact is that he had a deal with one of the strongest villains that we have ever seen, being Raz. He had something that actually had a mutual benefit, and by going through that lane, he had more. It is the first definition of a powerless villain taking advantage of what was around them. And honestly, one of the most terrifying of the lot, because it shows how much bureaucracy just simply works. The second type of powerless villain that we are going to talk about is going to be a type of villain that doesn't actually, again, have any sort of native ability, doesn't have any sort of predetermined fate, but is one that simply willed their way into becoming one of the strongest villains that we have ever seen. The main example of this one is definitely going to be the Mechanic. The Mechanic started off, as we know, as someone who just simply repaired noodle trucks for Master Chen, eventually being locked up in Cryptarium and finding his own path from there, constructing weaponry, constructing technologies, constructing things that would actually give him a fighting chance against the ninja. And you can see that reflected in basically every single time that we actually get to see the Mechanic. He's not a threat in Season 6, he's barely a threat in Season 8, but the thing is that come along Season 12 specifically, we actually get to see how much stronger he has become. He's able to take on the likes of the ninja and win in a fight, and that is because he has developed his own technology. He put himself in that position and gave him power because of it, to the point where it even impressed the overlords, and honestly, that is one of the biggest feats you could ever actually see. It is no easy feat by any account to get the Overlord's attention himself, and yet he actually got to do it. And even past that point in Dragon's Rising, he was still doing exactly what he needed to do. In the Elemental Mech shorts, we see the mechanic continue to just take on the ninja, and even though he does lose in the end, he is still putting up a very solid fight against the mechanic. And that is again just nothing to shy away from. The mechanic has done everything he can over the course of Ninjago to simply have his own footnote when it does come to the history. He was no one, and now he's definitely something. And lastly, the type of villain with no power is also the one who takes power. Now this is a type of villain that is best summarized by Chen. Chen is, by all account again, someone who doesn't have any sort of native ability. Chen is just an ordinary person who grew jealous of the fact that he wasn't an elemental master. He wanted power like everyone around him had as well. So he was the one who decided to take advantage of his situation. Even though he was banished away from Ninjago Island and he was on his own personal little area, he still found a crystal capable of absorbing elemental abilities. Chrono Steel. But the thing is that what we also know is that he saw that and took advantage. He saw an opportunity to snag one of the ninja, to attract all of the other ninjas in and the rest of the elemental masters by definition. Having one power from a weak elemental fighter allowed him to take the rest. Chen, again, take away all of those abilities is nothing. Chen, in the face of a much more powerful foe, runs away. We saw that at the very end of Season 4. But the thing is that as he gains more power and as he gains more of those elemental abilities and even the Anacondrae form, the more confident he becomes. Chen acknowledged the fact that he had these elemental powers because he took from other elemental masters, and that is what gave him his ability. Again, still by all account and by all definition powerless, but powerful because of the fact that he took it, and that is honestly possibly one of the most dangerous of all. This is a villain who by all accounts is just pure evil incarnate and is rolled by jealousy. It is one of the types of villains that will lead to the most extreme events, and again, case in point by the fact that Chen did nearly take over all of Ninjago. It is a dangerous combination, especially with a personality like Chen's. Now, of course, there are plenty of other Ninjago villains that do fall into one of these three categories. For example, gaining power through influence, you could talk about Harumi. Gaining power through acquiring the things around you and bettering yourself, you could talk about Beatrix, or also you could talk about the Skull Sorcerer. And then lastly, getting power through taking power, you could talk about Asphira. All of these definitions do apply to the villains that natively aren't powered in Ninjago, and I think that is one of the most amazing things of all. All of them have themselves one of these three categories and showed how they became something that was worthy of being against the ninja. It shows that not every single villain needs to be Garmadon. They don't need to be the Overlord. They don't need to be an elemental master like Moro, or the Omega for that matter. They are villains that can actually do something with essentially the tools that they do have around them. I mean, Dragon's Rising, one of the best villains of this era is Raz, a character who is not natively powerful. He just gained the strength for himself by taking it. Again, showing that you don't need these native abilities to actually be fierce. And that is why, in my opinion, the most dangerous villains in Ninjago are the ones that do not have those powers. But I do think that besides that, I just have a very big appreciation for Ninjago's villain catalog. At the end of the day, even if you have native powers or not, every single villain in this show have made their own mark. They've made their stamp and they're all iconic. all of them are someone's favourite, and I think that is one of the best things. No matter how you feel about the likes of Hands of Time or Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu, you will find that no matter what, there is someone that loves that villain and also loves that season, and a villain is typically a big aspect of that. So that is why I do want to know, like I said, what is your favourite type of powerless villain, and what's just your favourite villain in general? I would love to know what your thoughts are when it does come to them, because each and every single villain has a story. Each and every single villain is resonating with someone, and every single one of them will remain in someone's mind. And I would love the discussion to start around it, because I do think every single villain does deserve that praise. But besides all of that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people, and if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you could always become a channel member and join the legends that you see on screen. Each of you, your support means the absolute world to me, and I truly cannot thank you enough. But like I said, that's about it for today, and take care. Okay,